night in New York City. Steep federal funding cuts, high housing costs, struggling small businesses. There's serious concerns in need of solutions.
New York City is in the midst of the worst affordability crisis in our history.
New Yorkers need a fighter. New Yorkers need someone who's going to defend the city right now.
Tonight, live on the same stage, hear from two Democratic candidates running for New York City Comptroller who think they have what it takes to get the job done. Brooklyn Council member Justin Brannan.
I've stood up to the mayor, speaking truth to power. Nobody knows the city budget better than I do.
And Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine.
It's a job I've been preparing for my entire career.
From Pix 11, your local election headquarters. This is Race for New York City Comptroller, the 2025 Democratic primary debate. Co-sponsored by NYC Votes, the voter engagement initiative of the New York City Campaign Finance Board. 1010 wins at 92.3 FM, 94.7 The Block, El Diario Nueva York, and Schneps Media. Now, here are your moderators, Pix 11's Dan Manarino and Henry Rossoff.
Good evening on this debate night in New York City. I'm Dan Manarino here along with my colleague Henry Rossoff. We thank you all at home for joining us for this important hour-long Democratic primary debate, which, by the way, is the first official debate of this primary election cycle. And it's being held with early voting set to start in just a little more than 2 weeks. The race for New York City Comptroller, not the most prominent on the ballot, but the Comptroller plays an important role, no doubt, in city politics. The office holder serves as the city's financial watchdog with a number of jobs related to that, but there are two major responsibilities. One is managing the city's 5 public pension funds worth roughly $285 billion. But generally, you most hear from the Comptroller because of the second big job, auditing city agencies when it comes to both spending and performance. So, in practical terms, that often puts the Comptroller at odds with the mayor. Oh, and by the way, every comptroller since 1994, including the current comptroller, Brad Lander, has gone on to run for the office of mayor. So this is a race to watch. The two Democratic candidates joining us tonight are the ones that met the New York City Campaign Finance Board's requirements, and you can find those on our website. The board is the nonpartisan independent city agency that administers the city's public matching funds program and oversees the citywide debates. It also equips voters with the resources they need to participate in local democracy, like the New York City Voter Guide through its NYC Votes Voter Engagement Initiative. And remember, New York City voters have never had as much power as they do right now with the advent of ranked choice voting. So be sure to make your voice heard.
In an attempt to reach the most viewers, this debate is available on several platforms in different languages, broadcasting in English on Pix 11, streaming on Pix 11 Plus, Pix11.com, and the Pix 11 YouTube page, as well as the Odyssey app and the 1010 Wins website. It is also available in Spanish on Pix 11 by selecting the SAP option. Plus, we have Spanish subtitles available. And we're streaming in Spanish on Pix11.com as well as on the Odyssey app and the Wins Noticias website. To watch this debate in Mandarin, head over to the Facebook page of the Chinese American Planning Council. We have that Mandarin stream embedded in an article on our website as well.
All right, candidates, let's get to tonight's rules, okay? Each of you will get 60 seconds to answer a question. For any follow-ups, you will get an additional 30 seconds, and you will also have 30 seconds for rebuttals if you are called upon. We should also note to everybody at home that the candidates' position on the stage, as well as the order they are asked questions and the order they deliver closing statements, were all decided by random draw. And with all of that out of the way, are you ready? Let us begin. Gentlemen, we are less than a month away from primary day and mere weeks away from early voting. In our most recent poll done just this week, 29% of voters tell us they are still undecided when it comes to the comptroller race. So what is your pitch to that undecided voter to earn their vote, because it is such a big number? Mr. Levine, by random drawing, we begin with you. You have 60 seconds.
Well, thank you so much, Dan. This is a time of enormous challenges in New York City. We have housing costs which are out of control. We have real public safety challenges connected to our broken mental health system. We are under constant attack from Donald Trump. I'm running for comptroller to take on these fights. What you'll hear from me tonight is a positive platform about how I will get results for New Yorkers. This is what I've done my whole life. I started my career as a public school teacher and proud union member, teaching math and science at a junior high school in the South Bronx. I later took on the big banks and founded a credit union in Washington Heights that's invested $100 million in the community. as a council member, I passed legislation making this the first place in America where every tenant has the right to an attorney if they face an eviction. I have taken on this mayor and the previous mayor to win for parks, for public health, for tenants. As comptroller, I will take on Donald Trump, and I will be fiercely independent of whoever the next mayor is so that we can win to make New York City more affordable, safer for all.
Okay, Mr. Levine, thank you very much. Mr. Brannan, same question to you. What is your pitch to that undecided voter? Because the number is so big right now, to sway them to vote for you, you also have 60 seconds.
Sure. So I'm running for comptroller because I currently serve as chair of the Finance Committee, where I oversee the largest municipal budget in the country at $115 billion. As a matter of fact, today I spent the whole day in an NYPD hearing going over their budget. I've done 3 weeks of budget hearings, so I have the qualifications, but right now you need the guts. You need someone who's got the guts to stand up to the next mayor, to Donald Trump, and I've proven over the past 3.5 years that I'm the only one in this race that's spoken up and fought against this mayor. Clawed back over $1 billion in cuts to our libraries, to our parks, to CUNY, to things that New Yorkers rely on. I'm the guy that helped make that happen and fought against Eric Adams. Look, we need a fighter in this moment. Donald Trump is coming for us. New York City is in his crosshairs. And meanwhile, the city is spiraling out of reach for working people. We cannot sit on our hands as politicians. We've got to do something. And I believe the sharpest tool we have to bring down the cost of living is that $115 billion budget.
Mr. Brennan, thank you. Mr. Levine, I see you raise your hand. 15 seconds to you.
Well, I have a feeling you're going to hear this multiple times tonight. I just want to say the truth is I have stood up to Eric Adams again and again and again. I've taken him on COVID, on his rhetoric on migrants, on his cuts to parks. I've called him out for his corruption. I've sounded the alarm when he was compromised by Trump. I have took on this mayor, and I will take on the next mayor
leave it there. Mr. Brannan, 15 seconds to you, and then we're moving on.
For the past 3.5 years, this mayor has tried to cut CUNY, our parks, our libraries. Mark Levine was nowhere to be found. Never spoke up, never came to a rally. If you're going to fight Donald Trump, you need to do more than send a couple of strongly worded letters.
Okay, Mr. Brannan, thank you. Mr. Levine, thank you. We're going to move on. You have plenty of time to talk to each other. Henry has the next question.
In fact, we're going to talk about something Mayor Adams did just yesterday. Good evening, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to have you here. He was at a Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas encouraging crypto moguls to back local lawmakers who support the industry. Let's take a listen.
I believe we need to have a bit bond, and I am going to push and fight to get a bit bond in New York so you can do those same bond investments in New York City.
Floated the idea that Bitcoin could be used to both pay taxes and city fees. Mr. Brannan, we're beginning with you this time. Do you support the idea of a quote-unquote bit bond, and is this a realistic way to pay the city? 60 seconds.
Absolutely not. We should not be investing any money, especially retiree money, should go anywhere near crypto or Bitcoin. It would be deeply irresponsible. We barely have 20 years of historical data. This is an asset class that is renowned for chaos and uncertainty and market fluctuation and volatility. New York City should have nothing to do with Bitcoin.
Mr. Brannan, thank you. Mr. Levine, 60 seconds for you as well. What do you think of the idea of a bit bond, and is this how the city could be able to be paid?
I totally agree with what the council member just said. This is an asset class which has been dominated by speculators, has now been swamped by literally thousands of meme coins, which are taking advantage of unsuspecting Americans. The most prominent of which now is a meme coin owned by the Trump family, which has become nothing but a blatant vehicle for corruption, a way for people to put money into the pockets of the Trump family. So I think it's absurd that we would be promoting this as a bond, an investment class, or a vehicle for putting hardworking New Yorkers' savings, retirements, or future pensions. I will stand up for sober analysis of our pension fund, and at the moment, that means no Bitcoin investments.
Mr. Levine, thank you. Dan?
Gentlemen, House Republicans recently passed a sweeping package of President Trump's tax proposals and spending cuts, getting through by a single vote. The House plan referred to as the Big Beautiful Bill. It raises the SALT cap, it ends the Biden-era clean energy tax credits, makes changes to Medicaid and SNAP programs that could leave millions without health insurance and access to much relied-on programs. So, Mr. Levine, what, if anything, could you do to protect New Yorkers from losing access to these critical federal programs? 60 seconds.
Donald Trump is attacking this city on every front. He's attacking our people. He is ripping immigrant families apart. He's attacking LGBTQ New Yorkers. He's taken a sledgehammer to our economy. He's trying to tear down nonprofits. He has literally stolen money out of city government bank accounts. And now we face cuts to critical services, healthcare, housing assistance, food assistance. And we need a city budget that is built to protect us against those looming cuts. It's why I have strongly denounced the executive budget put forth by Mayor Adams, which does not add a single dollar to our reserve funds. I believe we need to add $1 billion to our rainy day fund, $1 billion to our general reserve fund, so that we have an added buffer to fill in gaps for critical services when and if the Trump cuts come.
Okay, Mr. Levine, thank you. Mr. Brannan, same question. What, if anything, could you do to protect New Yorkers from losing access to these critical federal programs? 60 seconds as well here.
Sure. I mean, look, you've got half of New Yorkers who are on Medicaid. There's no good answer here because almost 10% of our budget relies on federal grants and federal subsidy. There is not a city in this country that can survive without federal grants and federal subsidy. And unfortunately, right now, we have an administration at City Hall who is colluding and compromised and is afraid to stand up to Donald Trump. You have, a high school kid the other day who was picked up by ICE, and Eric Adams is afraid to even say anything about him. He's saying, go talk to them about it. Don't talk to me about it. So this moment calls for a fighter, someone who's going to stand up to Donald Trump, someone who's going to fight fire with fire. And if they come for our money, you got to be ready to sue back and meet that urgency. But if you can't even stand up to Eric Adams, how are you going to stand up to Donald Trump?
Okay, Mr. Brannan, thank you. And Henry has the next question.
Mr. Levine just mentioned this. Let's talk about those clawbacks. In recent months, the Trump administration has targeted New York City by clawing back money meant to help defray the cost of the migrant crisis. The White House literally pulled $80 million directly out of city accounts and canceled more than $100 million in additional payments. The city is suing over this. How would you, as Comptroller, protect New York City from the Trump administration pulling back even more money? Mr. Brannan, you first. 60 seconds.
Sure. Thank you, Henry. I mean, one of the things that was so concerning is that not only that Elon Musk was taking money out of our account while we were all asleep, but that it took City Hall almost 2 weeks to send a letter, to fight back, to sue back, to say, look, you can't do this because this money was appropriated by Congress. You've got to be ready to fight fire with fire. You've got to have that killer instinct. You've got to be ready to fight back. And right now, again, because City Hall is compromised, we're not seeing that. And New Yorkers are suffering because of it. We've got to build a fiscal firewall around the city by deploying money into the communities that need it most. And in a moment like this, elected officials at all levels of government, their number one responsibility should be to stand in that breach between the federal government and our most vulnerable who are under attack by this administration.
Mr. Brannan, thank you. Mr. Levine, same question. What would you do as Comptroller to protect New York City from more potential clawbacks? 60 seconds.
Yeah, look, I want people to understand what actually happened. This is money that we had a contract for with the federal government. We delivered services, paid out expenses, and then the federal government seized the money out of our account. This was plainly illegal. And it's unfortunate that it took weeks for us to sue. It's why I believe that the Comptroller should have independent power to sue if the law department doesn't. And I'm also sick and tired the way the mayor and the president continue to demonize migrants coming to the city. Y esto lo voy a decir en español. Los que están llegando acá son algo muy positivo para Nueva York. Por eso yo los defiendo y los defenderé para siempre. The people arriving to New York City are something positive for New York. I talk to them all the time. They want to work. They will make New York City stronger. It's why I will defend them against attacks from the Trump administration and, if necessary, against an indifferent City Hall.
Staying with the Trump administration for a follow-up, we've seen since the beginning of the year really wild swings on Wall Street spurred by actions coming out of the White House. Mr. Brannan, 30 seconds. What would you do if elected Comptroller to help the city withstand and stand up with some of these wild swings we've seen? 30 seconds.
Well, look, our city's economy is almost 20% relies on Wall Street. So that revenue is very important to pay cops and firefighters and teachers. Look, it's about building those public-private partnerships. It's about building, even if you have to work with the congressional delegation, the Republicans in New York City, to say, look, you can't come for New York City. Right? Look, for me, I'm unfortunately represented by Nicole Maliotakis in Congress. When I hear that even she is worried about how far these cuts go, that's how you know it's a real problem. Right now, we have no one at home at City Hall to fight back for us.
Mr. Brannan, thank you. Mr. Levine, how would you, if elected Comptroller, help insulate New York from some of these wild swings we're seeing on Wall Street? 30 seconds.
Yeah, Donald Trump, who ran on his business acumen, has been a disastrous manager of the United States economy. And we're feeling it here in New York with tourism down, with rising interest rates causing a slowdown in construction, in investments of all sorts, with small businesses suffering because supply chains are disrupted. I will fight back on every front with our allies in Congress. I'll fight to have a budget which protects us by increasing our reserve funds. I'll fight to support small business. I'll use every tool at my disposal to defend against these attacks.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Dan has the next question.
Thank you, Henry. Gentlemen, just last night, Elon Musk left the Trump administration after criticizing the big, beautiful bill. He says he will now rededicate himself to his companies like Tesla. So the pension fund you would manage as comptroller have more than 3 million shares of Tesla's stock. That's currently about $1 billion in holdings. So the current comptroller has announced plans to sue Tesla, saying that Musk is not concerned enough with his company and that he's hurting the stock. Mr. Levine, coming to you first here, should this lawsuit still go ahead? You have 30 seconds.
Well, the lawsuit should absolutely go ahead. I want to be clear that the job of the comptroller is to protect the pension funds, to maximize returns for retirees and future retirees. And I believe in this case that Tesla is a bad investment. And I agree with the council member that we should divest from that stock. Not a decision I make lightly. My goal here is at all times to have a win-win, to invest in businesses that do the right thing for diversity, for the environment, for workers, because I believe that is good for business. And sadly, Tesla does not meet that standard.
Mr. Levine, thank you. Mr. Brannan, same question to you. Should the city's lawsuit against Tesla move forward? 30 seconds here.
Yeah, the lawsuit should continue, but also the city needs to divest from Tesla. I've called for a full divestment from Tesla. I have a plan on my website for how to do it. It's not just a bumper sticker. We have over $1 billion in Tesla. We should not be investing in a guy who spends his days dreaming up new and cruel, creative ways to screw over New Yorkers. Coming after Medicaid, coming after Social Security, coming after the 9/11 health fund. New York City retirees should not have a dime of their money invested in this maniac.
Okay, Mr. Brannan, thank you. I want to talk about the all-important topic of housing, which, according to our most recent poll, is in fact the top issue for New Yorkers. You've both proposed using pension dollars to build more affordable housing in the city. So can you explain to city workers who are counting on their pension to retire how this will provide them the best return on their investment? Mr. Brannan, beginning with you here, 60 seconds.
Sure. Look, every decision you make as the controller, first of all, has to be done in concert and cooperation with the trustees. If I can't get you and can't make the case for at least a 7% return, which is mandated by the state, if I can't say that I can get you 7% return, then we're not going to do it. But investing in housing, investing in the creation of affordable housing is a win-win. You get great returns for the 5 pension funds, and you'd be investing in New York City, in the workforce, in the economy. I'm an old fan of Dick Ravitch. I don't know how many people might remember Dick Ravitch, but I want to get back to the days we used to dream big. This is the city that came up with Mitchell Lama and Electchester and Manhattan Plaza, performing artist housing, housing for workers. We've got to get back to that. We've got to start dreaming big again in this city, and we can do it by leveraging our pension funds while still getting a great return on our investment for retirees.
Mr. Brannan, thank you. Mr. Levine, same question to you here. Please explain to city workers who are counting on their pension to retire how this will provide them the best return on their investment. 60 seconds.
Well, just to state that we have a housing affordability crisis here that is unprecedented in our history, with rents that are out of control. We've got to find more locations to build affordable housing, and that is tough. That's a fight I've been all in on. But an even bigger challenge is the financing to build that housing, which we are desperately short of. And since the time of the great Liz Holtzman, who was comptroller back in the 90s, we have established a pattern of taking a small percentage of our pension funds in a way that's prudent, that gets good returns, that is a smart investment over time to finance affordable housing that would not otherwise be built. So I put forward a plan that would invest as much as $2.8 billion and produce as much as 70,000 units that would not otherwise be built. This is a good investment. That could also provide homes for city workers. And by the way, I've called for increasing the set-aside for city workers in these housing developments from 5 to 15%. So we have a win-win possibility here. This has been one of the centerpieces of my campaign.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. A quick follow-up here on the topic of housing. Mr. Brannan, coming to you here. Who would get the affordable housing? Who, once it's built? 30 seconds.
Well, that's the question everyone asks, is affordable for who, right? I see it as the classic story of the public school teacher who's married to the firefighter. They can't afford to live in the city right now. So we have to be targeting folks like that. Working class people, middle class folks who need to stay in the city. Some of them have to stay in the city by law because they work for the city and they can't afford to stay here. And that's a real problem. We are losing working families in the city, right? You'll hear the tabloids tell you that rich people are fleeing the city. It's not true. Working families are fleeing the city. The teacher and the firefighter are fleeing the city because they can't afford to live here.
Can you give me a specific beyond city workers who it would go to?
The plan I have would target specifically city workers, people that are employed at city jobs.
Okay, Mr. Brannan, thank you. Mr. Levine, same question to you. Who would get the affordable housing once it's built? 30 seconds here.
Everybody who's not a millionaire is struggling right now to find housing they can't afford in New York City. That includes people making minimum wage, but it also includes people who are really in the middle class, social workers, nurses, bus drivers. And we need an affordable housing plan that provides solutions for people at every rung of the income ladder. This is the plan I put forward. Yes, it will include set-asides for city workers. That is the rules in our housing policy. But it will also be there for the general New York family that is struggling now to make ends meet.
Mr. Levine, thank you. Henry has the next question.
Thank you, Dan. Let's mix things up a bit and talk about how you would use the Comptroller's audit, its sweeping audit power, to be a watchdog on some of the biggest city agencies. A quick reminder, an audit is basically a review of not just the financial, but the performance of a said agency. The biggest agency by far in last year's budget, which when it was passed was $112 billion, voted on by lawmakers, is the Department of Education, which at the time was allocated $32.7 billion. Mr. Levine, starting with you, what specific aspect of city schools is in need of an audit? 60 seconds.
Yes, again, a city government that's spending $115 billion, we desperately need to spend this money better. We need a more efficient, more modern government that gets services directly to people who need it. And the Department of Education is Exhibit A, where we spend hundreds of millions of dollars on consultants that should be money that should be redirected to classrooms. I will direct an audit to the special ed programs that fail to identify children with special needs, that then fail to provide them services, that then shamefully make parents hire lawyers to sue to get the services they need for their children. It's outrageous. And we, as a city, must do better. I will aim my audits at the DOE to sort this out so that every child, regardless of their learning needs, gets the diagnosis they need, the service they need, and the respect they need from our schools.
Mr. Levine, thank you. Mr. Brannan, what aspects of city schools would you audit? 60 seconds.
Sure. Look, I mean, the DOE budget now is almost $40 billion. I don't know a public school parent or a public school teacher who feels like they're working with a $40 billion budget. Certainly, by the time that money passes through the hands of all the consultants and outside IT consultants, by the time it gets to the classroom, there's not much left. So I think you need a full across-the-board audit. I used to work for the DOE. I know that that place is the silo capital of the world, and that's part of why we have so much calcified dysfunction there, but it's affecting our outcomes. I don't think our kids are actually getting a $40 billion education. So making sure, figuring out where is that money going, that by the time it gets to the classroom, how come there's nothing left? DOE needs a full soup-to-nuts audit.
So you don't have a specific place that you would start? You'd want to take a broader look?
Yes. Okay. I think it demands that.
Let's stay with education here for just a minute to follow up on one of the biggest changes we've seen to the curriculum in recent years. It was Mayor Adams working to shift the city curriculum to a more phonics-based approach in the elementary school level. Mr. Levine, 30 seconds. Would you audit to make sure that's been an effective pivot?
I just want to say this is a very personal issue for me. My wife, Eva Lisa, and I raised 2 kids in the public schools. As I said, I started my career as a public school teacher. I've talked to a lot of teachers about this transition, and mostly I think it's gone well. So I think the question of whether I will audit will be based on my conversations with parents and teachers and school leaders to evaluate how this is going at the end of the school year.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Mr. Brannan, what do you think of the literacy pivot to more of a phonics approach? 30 seconds.
I base it on, I have lots of teachers in my family and teachers that I talk to in the neighborhood, in the district, across the city, who like it. I'd like to make sure that we're getting the right bang for our buck for what we're paying. But so far, it seems to be working, and the teachers like it. If they like it, then who am I to say?
Thank you, sir. Dan has the next question.
Let's talk about public safety, gentlemen. The NYPD got $5.8 billion in the budget last year, but it's been well documented that number does not include hundreds of millions of dollars in police overtime. So, Mr. Brannan, what aspects of the NYPD would you audit? You have 60 seconds here.
So I spent the day grilling the NYPD with our, we're in the middle of our budget negotiations. Look, the NYPD budget all told is about $11 billion. People shouldn't feel so unsafe in this city with a budget that large. Making sure, look, the police are an important part of the public safety puzzle. They cannot be the only part of the public safety puzzle. But right now, when you call 911, all that happens is a guy with a gun shows up. There needs to be other solutions. We have to make sure right now we have such a crazy overtime crisis where we're spending over $1 billion in overtime while we're trying to fill headcount and hire more cops. It would be cheaper to hire more cops than to continue paying over $1 billion in overtime.
So is there a specific thing, though, that you would audit?
I would audit the overtime. They're completely blowing it. They will come to us and say, this year we think we're going to go about $300 million over, and then reliably they blow it out by $1 billion.
Okay, Mr. Brannan, thank you. Mr. Levine, same question to you. What aspects of the NYPD would you audit? 60 seconds to you.
Well, look, we do have a very real public safety challenge in New York City. It is directly connected to the broken mental health system. I hope we have time to talk about that. There's no doubt that policing is part of the solution. And we're struggling now because we have about 2,500 vacancies in the department. And that has led the department to rely heavily on overtime, which is really a lose-lose because it ends up costing us so much more money. We need to fill those vacancies. And I will use my audit power to figure out what's going on, to figure out why we're relying so much on overtime, and hopefully to get us to a place where it is no longer necessary.
Okay, Mr. Levine, staying on the topic of policing, 5 years ago, by voting in favor of the 2020 City Council budget, you both supported cutting about $1 billion from the NYPD amidst the defund the police movement. Many of those cuts, including a reduction in overtime and taking police out of schools, which never materialized. So, Mr. Levine, what do you say to New Yorkers who are concerned now about a lack of support for police as you now seek a citywide office? 60 seconds.
Well, this was in 2020. This was June of 2020. This was the midst of the worst of the global pandemic. We were in a crisis in the city. We were in an economic crisis. We had to shift hundreds of millions of dollars to the Department of Health. I chaired the Health Committee at the time, so I was deeply immersed in this. And we had to pass a crisis budget, which did mean cuts to a lot of agencies. There were demands for far, far steeper cuts, which I did not think was prudent. And so I voted for a budget which may not have met the demands for the deepest cuts, but I felt got us through a very difficult period, a budgetary crisis, a health crisis, an economic crisis, and I think we had no other choice.
Okay, Mr. Levine, thank you. Mr. Brannan, coming to you now, what do you say to New Yorkers concerned about a lack of support for police as you now seek a citywide office? 60 seconds to you as well here.
Sure. I mean, look, I've always supported my local cops. I think defund the police is probably one of the worst, most divisive slogans I've ever heard. Because the problem is if you actually have 5 or 10 minutes to talk to someone about what it actually means, or at least what some people think it means, it makes a lot of sense, which is that cops can't do everything. Cops signed up to catch bad guys, right? Cops signed up to make people feel safe. They didn't sign up to deal with people dealing with mental illness. They didn't sign up to deal with people who are having an unchecked domestic violence issue, nonviolent domestic violence issue. They didn't sign up to deal with people who are experiencing homelessness. We're asking them to do all of this stuff. So what we're saying is the neighborhoods that are the safest are not the neighborhoods with the most cops. They're the neighborhoods with the best parks and the best schools and the best small businesses. So we're talking about we can't only invest in the cops. We're never going to more cops our way out of every problem. But when someone calls 911, they want the cops to show up and be professional. But we also have to be investing in the things that prevent crime in the first place.
Okay, Mr. Brannan, thank you. And Henry has the next question.
Thank you, Dan. Staying with public safety here, New York State just granted new new power to involuntarily commit people living on the streets and subways who cannot no longer take care of themselves and bring them to the hospitals. Mayor Adams has for some time been championing these changes that were just passed. And according to our recent poll, New York City residents resoundingly support this. Mr. Brannan, how will you audit and make sure the new involuntary committal procedures don't go too far? 60 seconds.
Sure. I mean, the Department of Homeless Services has almost a $3.5 billion budget. Spend a little over $300 million on homeless outreach. We are not getting a good return on that investment as taxpayers. I represent 2 end-of-line stations in Coney Island and Bay Ridge where we have a serious, serious homelessness and mental health crisis there on our subways. The money that is being spent to send these well-meaning outreach workers out 20, 30, 50, 60, 70, 80 times, we pay for that every single time. That is money that could be better spent in supportive housing. So getting people off the subway, someone that denies that they need help 60, 70, 80 times, that's someone that needs help, and we have to get these people into housing. We should be spending more money on getting people out of the system and into housing, and less of just doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.